Okay, let's go over this. This time there will be practice problems for you to do after you are done. Okay, so I want you to simplify this expression. Okay, so this is kind of how we're going to format it. So on top we have a base of x. It is to the power of 20, no parentheses. If you don't have parentheses, we write 20 down. We have x on the bottom to the power of 4. Just write 4 down, you don't have to multiply because it's not in parentheses. Now remember, when you have a bottom, you have to look for things you can cross out. Okay, so you get rid of the x to the fourth, and if that's 4, we need to do the opposite of 4, which is minus 4. It'd be like getting rid of a fourth power on an equation. So 20 minus 4 is to the 16th power. Now just bring that over for now, and you can't simplify that because you don't know what x is, so it's x to the 16th power. Okay, now in my next problem, look at the top. You have a 4, a factor of x, a factor of y. Now let's just worry about the top. So 4 is to the 1 power, but it's in parentheses, so don't write 1 down. You have to take 1 times 3. That's 3. Now the x is in parentheses, so I don't want to write the 3rd power down. I got to take 3 times 3, that's to the 9th power. And then the y, 4 times 3, is to the 12th power. So all those have to be multiplied by 3. We don't want to use those when there's a parentheses. Now bottom, you have a factor of x. The only factor we have, it's to the 6. Now I can write 6 down because the parentheses doesn't surround the 6. Okay, now when you have a bottom, you got to cross out what you can. So these x's, you get rid of the smaller x, or the x on the bottom. And that was a positive 6, so we minus 6. So 9 minus 6 is 3. So we have 4 to the 3rd times x to the 3rd times y to the 12th. Okay, then what can I simplify? Well, 4 to the 3rd I can simplify. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So it's to the 64th power. And then x to the 3rd and y to the 12th. Okay, now on top you got a 7 times an x times a y. Worry about the bottom after I'm done. So 7's to the 1, remember put a 1 there, but I don't want to write 1 down because I need to take 1 times 2, and that's going to be 2. Now the x is to the 3rd, but I don't want to write 3 down, so I need to take the 3 times the 2, and that's 6. Now the y, 3 times 2, that's going to be 6 as well. Now, let's talk about the bottom. We have a factor of 4 times a factor of x times a factor of y. So 4 is to the 1st, but we don't write a 1 down because it's in parentheses, so we take 1 times 2, that's 2. X, 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Now, the 7 can't be crossed out with the 4, so we leave those alone. But the x on the bottom, we get rid of that and just subtract 2 from the top. So 6 minus 2 is 4. Cross out the y to the 2nd. When I cross it out, I just minus 2 there, and that's 4. So what do I have? On top I have 7 to the 2nd, I have x to the 4th, and I have y to the 4th. Now on bottom we have 4 to the 2nd. Keep that on the bottom. So what could I simplify? Well, 7 to the 2nd would be 49. 4 to the 2nd I can simplify, that's 16, but remember 4 to the 2nd's on the bottom, so we have to put the 16 on the bottom. And then I got my variables times x to the 4th times y to the 4th. Now at the end with the 49 and 16, quickly divide that on your calculator, and if you get a decimal, don't do anything, just leave it. That's simplified. Okay, my next one. Okay, so we have a base of 5, a factor of x, a factor of y. So 5's to the 1, but I don't want to write 1 down when it's in a parentheses, so 1 times 2 is 2. Now x, okay, 3 times 2, that is 6. Then I go to the y. 2 times 5 is 10. Now on bottom we have a factor of 3, a factor of 3, a factor of x, and a factor of y. So 3 is to the power of 1, okay? So 1 times 3 is 3. X, 1 times 3 is 3. Now let's talk about the y. 2 times 4 is 8. Now cross out where we can. 5 and 3 you can't cross out. Those are totally different bases. 5 and 3 are not the same base. But the x's sure are. And I minus 3. When I cross it out, I minus it. 6 minus 3 is 3. Y to the 10th divided by y to the 8th. We cross out the y to the 8th, subtract it, and that is 2. Okay, so we have 5 to the 2nd power times x to the 3rd power times y to the 2nd power. Now on bottom we have 3 to the 3rd. So out of these, what can I simplify? 5 to the 2nd would be 5 times 5. That would be 25. 3 to the 3rd we can simplify. That would be 27. On the bottom, you got times x to the 3rd times y to the 2nd. Now let's divide 25 by 27. That is not divisible when I get a decimal like that, so we'll keep that in fraction form, 25 27ths. Okay, next one. So on top, base 3. Now we have a factor of 3. This is going to be one where you're going to have to look back, okay? Now just look at the top of the line, okay? Don't worry about the bottom. See where my camera's focused on? Now, we have a factor of 3. Don't write it twice, though. Just write it once. So that's to the 4th. I write a 4 down. Now, hold on a second. Sorry, excuse me. Since there are 2 factors of 3, we are going to put a plus sign. We combine them by adding the powers. So I put a 4 down. I write 4 down because it ain't in parentheses, and then a 6. So 4 plus 6 is 10. So 3 to the 10th power. Now I go to the bottom. I have a factor of 3, and that one's to the 3rd power. So when there are 2 of the same factor, okay, 2 of them, you just want to add the powers. Put a plus sign and add the powers. Now, we definitely can cross these through the 3 on the bottom out because there's a 3 on top. So I get rid of that. And I minus 3 because that was a 3rd power. So 10 minus 3 is 7. So it's 3 to the 7th power. Now I could figure that out. Okay? 3 times 3 times 3. Make sure there's 7 of them. Don't take 3 times 7. Okay? 2,187, and that is our answer. Okay, focus on the top. We have a factor of 2. We have a factor of x, a factor of 4, another factor of x. So when I come across the second factor of x, I put a little plus sign, okay? And then a factor of y. It will help if you come across the second factor, just put a plus sign. So 2 to the 1, 1 times 5 is 5. Now, remember, we have to add 2 exponents to get the x. Here's the first x. It's to the 1, but you got to take 1 times 5. So I put a 5 there. Then I come over here. 5 times 2 is 10. So it's going to be 5 plus 10, which is x to the power of 15. Okay, now 4. 4 is to the 1. 1 times 2 is 2. And then the y, 3 times 2 is going to be 6. Now bottom, we have a factor of y and a factor of x. So I take 2 times 2, 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay. Now what can I cross out? Look at the bottom. Do you have a y on the top? Yeah, right there. So you can get rid of this on the bottom, the 4. If we minus 4 from 6, that would be 2. Now, you have an x on bottom. Do you have an x on top? Yeah, so you can get rid of the one on the bottom. That was a 12, and then I minus 12 from the 15. So 15 minus 12 is 3. So we have 2 to the power of 5, times x to the power of 3 now at the end, times 4 to the power of 2, times y to the power of 2. So out of those four factors, the only ones I can simplify are the 2 to the 5th, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That equals 32. And I can also simplify 4 to the 2nd. 4 times 4 is 16. Times x to the 3rd times y to the 2nd. So 32 multiplied by 16 is 512. Okay. Now, again, when you have those two big numbers together like that, you need to use the times dot and multiply them. So 512. Okay, next one. Top, we have a factor of 7, an x factor, and a y factor. So 7, 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8 with the x, and then 3 times 2 is 6. Remember, you're timesing those all by 2. On the bottom, you have x to the 4th. Okay, now on the bottom you have x. Do you have an x on the top? You do, so we get rid of the one on the bottom, and we just take 4 away. And 8 minus 4 is 4. Okay, so you have 7 to the 2nd times x to the 4th times y to the 6th. Okay, now 7 to the power of 2 is 7 times 7. That's 49. Times x to the 4th times y to the 6th. Okay. Factor of 6. Factor of x, and a second factor of x, so I put a plus sign. Okay, so 1 times 2 is 2. So if we put the 1 times 2 is 2. Now I go to the x's. Okay, I know I have to add two things together, so I go 3 times 2, that's 6, and then 4 times 2, that's 8. So 6 plus 8 is 14. Now on the bottom, okay, you have a factor of y, and then another factor y, so I just put a plus there. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. 5 times 3 is 15. So we take 6 plus 15. And that's going to be 21. So it's y to the 21st power. Now you have a y here. Do you have a y on top? You don't, so you can't cross it out. Okay? You can't cancel it. There's no cancellation here. So just bring everything over. And we can find what 6 to the 2nd is, and that's 36. Y to the 21st.